people intrinsically good or bad? Are we ones or are we zeros? Often when we think about doing good, we think about it in the binary. We are good people doing good things, or we are bad people doing bad things. In the social sector in particular, we're all really good people. We have good intentionalities, and we want to do good. Is this mindset limiting? If we think of doing good as a binary, can we ever do better? Can we embrace feedback? Can we actually make a dent into some of the big social issues that our society is facing? Dolly Chu, who is a social scientist from New York State, states that our attachment to being good people is getting in the way of being better people. She explores a journey in which we are not good or bad, but a journey in which we are striving to be good-ish. We are able to receive feedback and become better. This has been part of my journey. When we look around the world and internally in our country, there are a number of change makers who have driven and created a more prosperous world. They have done good better. But doing good is difficult, and it's not always clear. And so for me, in my journey, it started off by understanding that driving impact goes beyond good intentionality. And then it entered into a space where I was exploring how I could do good better. And the first phase of my life was about this view that I wanted to do good. People around me wanted to do good, but it wasn't always clear if that doing good was actually resulting in meaningful, sustainable impact. My early days spanned from engineering to investment banking, but with an initial view that I wanted to drive impact. Volunteerism. I think many of you have heard about volunteerism. On the surface, this sounds great. You travel to an exotic place, you get to do good, you get to help people in need. We paint walls, we build schools, we volunteer in orphanages. But who is this really affecting, and who is this impacting? Volunteer trips are often short. Volunteers are often inexperienced. Resources are often drained, and local economies are affected. There's even studies that show that short-term volunteer visits in orphanages is directly linked to trauma and development challenges faced by children in orphanages. So why do we volunteer? Why do we engage in volunteerism in particular? It makes us feel good. What would happen, though, if we took that $5,000 we would spend on this volunteerism trip, and instead of painting that wall, we invested it in a local entrepreneur, or we provided it to a local school so they could hire a teacher? What would happen if we moved beyond focusing on us feeling good through volunteerism, and then the effects and impact of volunteerism was the main objective? From research and from experience, we know that short-term volunteers can harm more than hurt. Then, as I thought about how I could do good, I started looking at different interventions, different ways different people were tackling social challenges. Take play pumps. Phenomenal technology that was created, huge hype, huge amount of interest. They had created essentially a merry-go-round device that would pump water for villages across Africa. Makes sense. It's a tasking job to pump the water using a hand pump. They were harnessing the power of play to drive impact and to provide accessible water. Millions were invested in play pumps. The investor and the creators of Play Pump felt that this was an idea that could transform countries and communities. However, a number of practicalities were not considered. Think about when you're on a playground. You're on a merry-go-round, and the fun comes after you exert a bit of force, and then it spins freely. Now, for this play pump to work, that force had to be constant. You had to continue to push the play pump so that the water could pump. Today, play pumps sit idle, and many have been replaced by hand pumps. This example for me reinforces the view if we truly want to drive impact, we need to design with communities and not for communities. Buy one, give one. How many folks are familiar with that model? Okay, so you buy this pair of pretty white canvas shoes, and one is donated to a child in need. On the surface, sounds pretty good. You get a nice new pair of shoes, and you do good in parallel. But what problem are you solving by giving and donating a shoe? After living and working in some of the poorest countries around the world, I can tell you the problem that we think we're solving is not the problem. Shoelessness, right? If you're giving free shoes to communities, you're really solving for shoelessness. When we look at the opportunity of doing good, we sometimes forget the implications of what we're doing. Giving free shoes is effectively dumping in local economies. What happens to that shoemaker if he is the shoemaker of the community that is making those shoes? What happens to the people that shoemaker employs? What happens to the agency of the local community? Often, when we feel we're doing good, there is an opportunity to dig deeper to truly understand if we're driving impact. I believe that driving impact goes beyond good intentions. Today, resources are changing, technology is disrupting the way we live and work, and social problems are scaling faster than our solutions. I believe if we want to make a dent into some of these big-scale social challenges, we need to figure out how we can do good better. And that was phase 2 of my journey, from microfinance to impact investing to venture philanthropy, exploring how we can leverage our resources in the most effective way, understanding that economic development is a pathway out of poverty, and truly being critical to myself and embracing a journey of being good-ish. Also realizing that I no longer had to think about doing good as a separate part of my life. We do not live in a bifurcated world. We can do good and be well. We can merge money and meaning. And that led me to microfinance. I moved to West Africa, Ouagadougou in Burkina Faso, to start my journey in working with a microfund. We provided access to small loans to entrepreneurs who otherwise could not access capital. I, being an engineer, worked in the back end and drove the technology of this 3-country network to help the organization deploy capital more efficiently and more quickly. I then returned to Canada and had a unique opportunity to build a microfund. We were working with people with a history of mental health and addiction challenges and helping them start businesses in Canada by providing access to small loans and mentorship. We know that employment is a social determinant of health and a predictor of recovery. And by giving a pathway to either part-time or full-time employment, individuals with a history of mental health and addiction challenge were then able to embrace a life with identity and with improved health outcomes. I then jumped back into impact investing, where we were applying debt and equity, investing that in high-impact social enterprises that were providing a critical good or service to the bottom of the pyramid. All of these experiences reinforced one important element of my growth, and that was that we can do good better through economic development and investing in people and their talent. I've since moved back to Canada, and I'm running a venture philanthropy fund. When you look at Canada, we are more economically and socially prosperous than we ever have been. Over the last 2 decades, we are a country that is more educated, that is safer, with individuals that have higher wages, and that is embracing a more collective being. However, below this growth and this prosperity, there are deep inequities. Take education. In Indigenous communities, our graduation rates dramatically trail that of the Canadian average. And wage growth is not affecting all of us. And multiple health outcomes are worsening. I believe that we have an opportunity to do good better. In the work that we do, we work across silos and sectors. We bring the best of the private sector to embed their expertise to help the highest impact social ventures grow. And we are just getting started. And I am just getting started in a journey of understanding how I can do good, how I can think beyond the good intentionality, how I can work across sectors and silos, and how I can embrace a mindset that allows me to continue to grow and to continue to do good better. Thank you.